Welcome back to WCB Jazz Vinyl. The latest news from Vinyl Me Please is actually pretty troubling to many. And I want to tell you about what they announced, give you some of my reaction, maybe some of my opinion on why maybe it isn't entirely their fault and why I'm still optimistic about their future. Without further ado, go ahead and hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Instagram at what_can_brown, and let's get into it. So first, I know everybody on YouTube who makes videos, whenever there's like a week gap, they have to get on their next video and explain it away as if anybody noticed. I'm going to do that too. So I know that it's been like almost 2 weeks since my last video. I was traveling, on vacation, didn't make a video, didn't have anything in queue to upload. So that's why it is. But I'm sure again, probably people didn't notice. But let's get to the topic at hand. This was actually not the video that I was planning to make today. I was going to make a video about this Story of Impulse box set that just came in from VMP while I was away. In fact, it was part of like a stack of records that I had on my that I had arrive while I was away. I had neighbors like picking everything up to avoid porch pirates. And that was the video that I was prepared to make today. And then yesterday we got an announcement by, well, VMP. And I just thought it was very important that I address this before I address that. So what I'm getting at, yesterday, VMP members received one of two emails, depending on whether you were a domestic US or an international or really outside US member of VMP, Vinyl Me Please, right? The email was addressed from the CEO and co-founder of VMP, Matt Fielder. So the email to domestic members read as follows: "We are adjusting our domestic membership pricing. These changes will go into effect for new members beginning this week and for existing members upon your next renewal starting October 1st, 2024. This decision was not made lightly, and I want to share some context with you." He went on to outline the following. "Raw materials, manufacturing, shipping, and labor costs have increased significantly over the last 18 months. In fact, shipping costs rose over 18% just since December of 2023. He referenced licensing rates have gone up as much as 50% over the same time period. He said maintaining consistent quality has become difficult, which has impacted production timelines. I think we've all seen that. And he said, as a result, this is like the concrete, this is what hits the members. Monthly membership is going up from $46 to $54. I did the math. That's almost 17.5%. 3-month membership up from $128 to $149. It's about 16.5%. 6-month membership from $237 to $279, which is a little over 17.5%. And 12-month or annual membership up $435 to $529, which is a 21.6% increase. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know VMP's business, but I am in marketing and corporate strategy for a Fortune 50 company. I think we're still 50 for a living. And to some extent, I'm going to use maybe a little bit of that, but also just some like common sense and outright guesses to expand on some of these topics. So when I think about the market conditions that have caused this, and to be fair, many of these, the email sort of, outlines, but doesn't get into that much detail. There are a few thoughts that come to mind. So the first one that I want to talk about, some of these are going to be obvious. First one I want to talk about is inflation. So again, easy one, we all know that the cost of goods has gone up. In this case, we're talking about, PVC, which is the sort of the primary ingredient in vinyl, which is made of chlorine and ethylene. And then I guess we're talking about, the materials that are used to make covers as well. So I looked into it. Turns out generally in the US anyway, PVC prices are at some of their lowest levels since 2020. However, the demand for like high quality PVC that's used to produce vinyl could potentially be quite high. Perhaps because right now, the demand for that type of material is at some of its highest levels because there's so many people in this hobby and there's so many different labels that are actually attempting to produce high quality vinyl, which means that prices are therefore likely up. So the next one is interest rates, another obvious one, but I did want to mention it. So the cost of borrowing has obviously gone up, which we all know, probably primarily because of its impact on mortgage rates, but also obviously that it impacts us in many other ways. So if VMP borrows in order to fund their operation, which nearly all companies do, then it's definitely impacting their business as well. So the third one I wanted to touch on is labor. So we all know, or think we do, that retaining labor, especially low-skilled labor right now with employees that can easily switch from one manufacturing job to another. Remember, we're not talking about VMP's own manufacturing because they leverage contract manufacturing, pressing plants, right? So the workforce that those vendors rely on, well, retaining that labor is more difficult right now, which drives the cost of labor up, and that cost gets forced down the supply chain to those pressing plants' customers like VMP in the form of higher prices. So far, those higher prices are being absorbed by VMP. So the next one is shipping. So this one hits my industry in particular. Something we all experience though as well. The shipping rate that you incur for that record though is not exactly what I'm talking about. So just as an aside, right now the media mail 2-pound rate is $5.38. So I actually just shipped something the other day and I was surprised because I swear the last time I shipped something it was in the 4s. That media mail rate, or the cost of shipping, is built into the cost of your VMP membership. And so therefore, members technically don't pay a shipping line item, whether you're talking about the monthly release or any of the box sets that you order on the side or the individual records. Shipping is covered in your VMP membership rate. Guess what? The price of shipping that 2-pound package in 2023 was $4.87. So even just since that time, it's a 10.4% increase, plus the cost of, obviously shipping those raw materials and packaging further up the supply chain from the suppliers has increased as well. All that is getting passed through to VMP, which is impacting their margin. And only now have they decided to start passing some of that on to customers like you and me. All right, the next one is licensing. So the email referenced licensing. As far as I can tell, things have changed since VMP first started this business. And I can't remember exactly when that was. I almost want to say it was 2013, 2014, but that may be just when I first became aware of VMP. But in any event, in those early days, the number of high quality vinyl reissue outfits that were out there were relatively limited. And VMP had the ability probably to secure licensing from these music, conglomerates of the world for lower licensing fees because there was less demand, because that's how economics works. Now, all those companies today have, all those music conglomerates today have multiple labels, oftentimes knocking on their doors for the very same title, sometimes in the same year. So we've seen that. We've seen Acoustic Sounds put out a title and then the same year, the next year, Craft Recordings try to put out the same title. So as a result, cost of licensing is up. The terms to VMP are probably less favorable, probably with shorter exclusivity periods in terms of how long they have the ability to sell that merchandise before they lose the right to. And probably, this is a guess, higher volume commitments up front, regardless of what the demand ends up being. So VMP could go to Universal and say, hey, I want to license this John Coltrane title, and I'm going to sell 3,000 units. And Universal could say, you can only have it if you commit to 5,000 or 10,000. And so VMP would then say either, okay, I guess I don't want that title, or they would say, okay, I'll do it, and then be in a situation where they have to sell. They either they have a ton of unsold merchandise, or they have to try really hard to get rid of it. So that's a hugely important factor that was outlined in the email. Now, one signal that we see in the price increases, that table, right, of the percentage increases for monthly and 3-month and 6-month, etc., that I wanted to bring up is the fact that the largest increase in cost as a percent and as a total dollar number actually is for annual subscribers. So in fact, it's actually just now a 5% discount that you get by being an annual subscriber versus just being a 6-month subscriber. So if I was in marketing at VMP, I would be looking at clusters of customers to understand where I'm getting my profit and which customers are my least profitable customers. And I would be actively trying to incentivize one while not necessarily paying as much attention to the others. So if VMP is increasing the cost for annual subscribers the most, which you would think that would be their most loyal fans, it's probably because they aren't getting the benefit from those customers as much in the form of like repeat orders. And maybe the shopping cart size is not as high for annual subscribers. Maybe it's materially different than those for, say, monthly subscribers or quarterly. So, obviously I'd rather retain the business of a customer who's buying more expensive items and multiple items in the same shopping cart, versus the customer who is just taking that one record of the month and that's it. So wouldn't it be interesting if VMP had all of a sudden discovered that longer term subscribers are in fact less profitable than shorter term subscribers? It is, it's counterintuitive, but it is totally possible. All right, so one of the ways that VMP has been reacting to this, and there's been many ways, right? I think anytime you see an announcement over the last year or two that has anything to do with, price changes or business model adjustments or the launch of the Rock, sort of series and then taking it away, all of this has been trying to steer the company towards, more growth or a better profit picture, better profitability, et cetera. And my, one of the things that I've noticed is that VMP lately has been discounting the hell out of their merchandise. So case in point, the recent Story of Impulse box set, which I just held up at the beginning of this video, which was delayed repeatedly after the first announcement in July of 2023, was finally put out in late August, just a couple of weeks ago. Well, guess what? That item was brand new, available for pre-order, and I was able to use a 40% off coupon to pre-order it. Now, it turns out that this was a mistake, but one that, because of the internet and all the Reddit people and the Steve Hoffman threads and what have you, the news of that spread and a ton of people took advantage of it. So what was I think at retail, a $399 box set, $349 for members, became something like $220 for me. And I'm an annual subscriber. I'm already a fan of VMP, and I might have bought it anyway. Now, do I feel guilty for taking advantage of a deal? No, because my responsibility is not ensuring the profitability of their business. My responsibility as a customer is shopping around. Now, okay, you could say, if I'm a fan of VMP, then I'd want them to be in business, but is that going to make me want to spend, an extra $150 or whatever it is in order to get the same item? No. And you could say that that's a heartless way to think about it. But when I say my responsibility as a customer is shopping around and doing what's best for me, I kind of mean that in theory, because I think overall that's the responsibility of customers, not necessarily that I behave that way in every case. But in this case, I took the 40% off. Independent of this example, VMP has been discounting their merchandise significantly because my guess is their volume forecasts were way off, and I think it's because they're no longer able to get the same quality of titles that they used to, because again, the licensing costs and the demand from other labels for releasing those same titles. All right, so now I do want to address the international member email briefly, much more briefly than the domestic one and all that commentary, because some of that commentary, most of that commentary carries across. The international email is even more troubling than the domestic one. In fact, it's catastrophic. So what I want to talk about then after that is why none of this, or maybe little of this, is actually VMP's fault. So the international member email read as follows. Starting in October 2024, VMP will no longer offer membership to members outside the United States. So now I'm going to paraphrase. They're going to be automatically canceling memberships at the end of the current term. So that means that if you're, as soon as the term of your membership, if you're a 3-month subscriber, when that ends, right before it renews, they're going to be canceling that. What they also say is if you're located in a country that VMP will continue to ship to, which by the way, I think includes 27 countries, you can continue to buy records after your membership ends, but of course you have to pay the shipping, duties, and taxes. Now, this topic often comes up. People complain about shipping, duties, and taxes, and I understand that it's such a big problem for international buyers when they're buying from the US. And I do acknowledge that there are many cases where it's the shipper or the distributor who's not securing the best rates in order to ship items. And so that's one of the reasons why shipping costs are high. However, also, there's a ton of situations where that is not the case, and the reason is because of trade agreements or individual countries' duties and taxes for imports. These are things that VMP cannot control. Now, I don't know what their international shipping rate is. I don't know if that in and of itself is competitive or not. I do know by experience that when I ship internationally, it is at least $25 to ship a single record with tracking to most countries. Okay, so it's very expensive for a single record. I get it. And then there's duties and taxes, VAT, etc. So it turns out, get this. First of all, I think the shipping situation is singularly the reason why they're canceling international memberships, because I just don't think it can be viable anymore. Now, it turns out, according to the CEO, international orders make up 15% of their total revenue, but that business has a negative margin of negative 13%. So I'm not a representative of VMP, but I will apologize to all the international members. But from a pure business decision standpoint, if you have no other levers to pull to reduce your costs, which no doubt would result in a lower quality product, you have to fire your unprofitable customers. In some situations you don't, if they're helping you cover your fixed costs and you're willing to keep them on. But a negative 13% margin is just bad business. The only other option that they have is to increase the price. And something tells me that, especially because of those excessive shipping charges, the taxes and the VAT, that the market will not support raising the price of what is already a $45-ish retail cost record, much more than that. And so this is their only option. So again, conjecture, right? I'm not VMP. I don't represent them. I don't look under the hood of their financials. I'm just thinking about it for myself, right? So what now for VMP? They're focused on the domestic market and not the international. More and more, it's going to be difficult to get the top titles that labels are otherwise saving for, I suppose, themselves, or because they know that there's going to be demand. They're raising the licensing fees. So we've seen VMP's reaction to this lately, and over the course of the last year, they're discounting to get rid of unsold merchandise, and they're trying to recoup everything they can. They're placing more of an effort on producing some of these high-quality box sets of content that arguably, not always, but arguably has lower licensing fees for some of these individual items, but collectively may represent something that could be more profitable for them than individual titles would be, and they're getting a larger revenue per order, which is helpful as well. They are putting some of their money into additional things like socks that were shipped along with the Impulse box set, which is a little strange. They also produce podcasts, right, associated especially with their anthology series. And these are things that theoretically offer a greater value to the customer than the cost it takes to produce them, perhaps. And of course, they're raising their prices because, well, they must. All right, so all of the above, plus all of the drama with some of their folks at the top and the manufacturing plant to the pressing plant that they were trying to bring online, and all of the controversy around that, these collectively are signs that the company is floundering a little bit, or at the very least searching for direction. And yet, I think, as I've alluded to, I do have a hard time faulting them for at least some of these decisions and some of the situation that they're in. So as I mentioned, you cannot justify keeping unprofitable customers. And you do have to pull as many levers as you can to get the company back on track. And getting back on track better be improving your profitability, if also not growing your business. And this concept of shrinking to grow is really prevalent in the business landscape right now, where businesses are firing unprofitable customers like VMP. They're trying to improve their margin by cutting costs, not focusing as not necessarily on growth, but focusing on profitability, and then starting to grow from a much better sort of foundation, right? So this is not something that's unique to VMP. I'm seeing it in a lot of other businesses as well. In the end, VMP may not be, well, they may be fine with not being as big as they once were. So they're going to increase their prices. They're going to lose some customers in the process, but they're going to focus, they should focus on producing higher quality and more in-demand titles, not necessarily more in demand for certain customers, is what I would say. And we're seeing it with a variety of other outfits as well in terms of labels, when I say outfits. The idea to focus on being small, but go after the higher end customers who are willing to pay more for individual titles. I think if they're going to do that, they need to really focus on the manufacturing process and ensure they have high quality. They need to focus on determining what are the better titles to choose versus the not as good titles to choose. And I would say how they should think about that is focus on, yes, niche, but in demand stuff that hasn't been released in a while, and don't go after the stuff that that they're going to have to commit to like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 copies, in order to sort of justify the licensing costs. I also think that they're going to need to sort of refocus, and I think they are doing this already, refocus their marketing and PR a little bit to convince the marketplace that this change in strategy is not just smoke and mirrors, but they've actually devoted to the mission of high quality of manufacturing, high quality of title, etc. But, I guess the question is, what am I going to do? And what I would say, and I've been thinking about this even just over the last day or so, is I'm going to keep my membership. I may make an effort to spend my unused swap credits sooner than later in case the shit hits the fan. But otherwise, I think I'm in. Am I worried about them going out of business if I'm 6 months through my membership and then I lose the rest of the 6 months? Not really. I have to think that they would acknowledge sooner than later if they were going to go out of business and find out a way to sort of refund their customers. So I'm not worried about like losing $100 of my subscription. That's not even entering my mind, actually. I am thinking about using those unused swap credits because I could see those evaporating if they went out of business. But what I will say is VMP does have great titles. And I think lately they've been making an effort to have better titles, and they've shifted their strategy in some ways, it feels like. So, I haven't done a review on this, but I've already started typing up my thoughts and, like bullet pointing my thoughts or whatever to make a video. But, Tio Masaro's, just Tio is the name of the album, it was a great title. It was a really, really good title. It was well made. It sounds fantastic. The Story of Impulse box set, which again is, upcoming video, really high quality. Now, you could argue, and I'm going to get into this in the video. There's a lot of people that are talking about the choice of titles, and what my video is about is the fact that actually VMP chose these titles in 2021 before everybody else came in and started reissuing some of them. I'm not trying to just make excuses for them, but they have been a victim of circumstance in some of these situations. But I will stand behind this idea that VMP's quality is better. They do have great titles, and if I were them, I would go for splashy titles, not in terms of necessarily total popularity, but seek out the stuff that collectors want, like really want. Like go niche, go private pressing stuff. create excitement about being a label that's bringing music to fans that really appreciate it and they can't get it elsewhere. And guess what? Those fans will pay more money for those titles. So that is my rant/thoughts on yesterday's big announcement from Vinyl Me Please. I know there's a lot of people that are thinking about this. I know there's a lot of people who are canceling their subscriptions, or at least the most vocal people that are out there on the internet are the ones who are canceling. And like I said, I'm sticking with it for now. I'm interested in each month's title to see when it's announced what it is, and then make a decision about whether I want to get it. And if I don't want it, I take the swap credit. I never feel like they're forcing a title down my throat that I don't want. And so therefore, it feels like I have nothing to lose because, yes, I do the annual membership, but the choice is mine to take any individual title. So we'll see if that strategy changes. We'll see what happens with Vinyl Me Please as time goes on. I am really interested to hear not only your comments, but how this unfolds over the coming weeks and months. So with that, thanks very much for your attention. I'll see you next time.